to everyone on the live. This is the N.N.P night, and I want to welcome you all to this evening's live stream. Um, we are finally set and ready to go. Let me know if you can hear me clearly in the comments. So thank you to those persons who are on. Welcome to this evening's session of the new National Party. So asking those persons to like and share this evening session. I want to have a very informative discussion. Tonight we'll be discussing the issue of the $300 grant and payout from the government of Barbados to the citizens of the population, and we're going to discuss that issue heavily this evening. Tonight's session, is an educational session. So I expect some questions from you and some feedback also on your queries surrounding this $300 payout. Right. So welcome. Let's let me give persons a chance to sign on to the session. So good evening to you all. We're here on the N.N.P night. So let us do some brief marketing. Let's do some brief marketing for a second. Coming up on the 15th of June, which is Father's Day, the new National Party will be having a Father's Day luncheon. So we want to ask you to celebrate your dad by bringing him to the N.N.P's Father's Day luncheon. Yeah. So we are trying to have that photo put here that we may see. Having a Father's Day luncheon on the 15th of June 2025, which is next month, in celebration of Father's Day. So we want to invite you. Let us look at that for a bit. Yes, so here's it. The N.N.P's luncheon under the patronage of Kemar Stuart, the new National Party political leader. And this is for Father's Day. Father's Day. So the luncheon will be held at the Prerogative House, Wilkinson Road at Prerogative St. George. So for those persons who may know um, where Prerogative is, I'm asking you to bring your dad to this luncheon. So don't forget to like the program. Don't forget to share the program so persons may become aware of what the N.N.P is offering to the people of Barbados and to hear more about our special event coming up. So don't forget, people, tickets are $60 for adults and $30 for children. $60 for adults and $30 for children. So we're encouraging you all to come out to this session in celebration of Father's Day on the 15th of June. On the 15th of June at Prerogative House, Wilkinson Road. Prerogative is St. George. So that's very close to the St. Jude's Primary School, the same stretch as the St. Jude's Primary School. So it is not difficult to find. You can put it in on Google also. We provide further instructions as to the exact location. So as long as you purchase your ticket, we facilitate you with having the directions provided straight to Prerogative House. Now this event here is basically our first social event. I will be having more social events as the time go by. So I'm encouraging you to come out and support the N.N.P's events. As with your support, the movement grows bigger. The movement is, um, inclusive, and we would really love to see you bring out your dad for this luncheon for Father's Day. Right? So we're celebrating the men for our first event and the contribution of the fathers within society. So not only just a father, but grandfathers as well, great granddads as well, right? So this event is also open to the entire family. As I say, we have tickets for children as well, and there'll be live entertainment for the entire day. You see, so just come out and relax and have a good day. There'll be music, there'll be food, there'll be drink, there'll be good camaraderie, and this event is open to John public. So it doesn't regardless of if you belong to some other political institution, it doesn't matter. Hey, you're very much welcome to attend our luncheon. So we look forward to seeing you there as we execute this as our first event as a political party. And the executive members will be very glad to have you guys come out and support us at the N.N.P's luncheon. So we are growing in numbers. Good night to you, Fabian. Good night to all of the other members of the executive of the N.N.P. Welcome to tonight's program. We are discussing the $300 payout by government, the cash grant. Many persons are trying to figure out, what it's all about. So tonight we're definitely going to do a breakdown of that $300 payout. So let me touch a bit on Alternate Views, the book, Barbados' Economic Road to Republic. And I want to read, I want to read a quote from Alternate Views. From Alternate Views. I want to read a quote from Alternate Views, the book. And I said basically at chapter 14 that too often government banks become a watering hole for politicians to borrow cheap money and to expose the financial system to government debt. So, prudent financial regulation must be enforced to protect the financial system from a lack of discipline within the political class. So, therefore, the need for the Financial Services Commission to increase the monitoring of the different assets within the financial system, okay, within the financial system, which will be inclusive of sanctions, fines, and the revocation of licenses, must be at the forefront of a new and improved framework to monitor financial misconduct within the system of Barbados. So the enforcement of financial rules and regulations to ensure that the national insurance is protected from excessive political interference and to ensure that the future of the national insurance remain intact. So legislation which regulates the specific assets of which the national insurance pension fund can invest in, and the enforcement of that legislation is necessary because a call for accountability for breaches of financial rules is crucial in Barbados. So, in understanding the situation Barbados faced economically, one should grasp the steps that were taken within the past as part of the last Democratic Labour Party's economic policy, heavily focused on deficits, as these deficits were created to finance everyday government operations, right? So wages, salaries, the different works, the government was using the national insurance to be able to pay for these things, right? We can get too deep into the NAS tonight, per se, but we want to look at the fact that the payout or the cash grant is coming or is being administered by the national insurance. So to receive this cash grant from the NAS, right? To receive this cash grant from the NAS, one would ask, where is the money coming from? Right? Where is the money coming from? One would ask, where is the money from? Where is the money coming from? Right? So, according to the authorities of government, right? According to the authorities of government, they indicated, right? They indicated that they were using the funds from corporate taxes, right? Corporate taxes, corporate taxes. So, what's corporate tax? Basically, the tax that the government collect from businesses, right? Businesses. So, due to the changes the government claimed they made, right, within the national insurance, not national insurance, the corporate taxes, the changes they made to the corporate tax structure or the business tax structure, that is seeing businesses paying corporation tax at a much more rapid rate. It's giving the government excess revenue, right? Giving the government excess revenue. So they're saying that they are giving us some of this piece of the pie or the bounty or whatever it is called, right, out of the corporate taxation revenue. So as usual, we like to show proof. So let me get my screen up and ready. Let me get my screen up and ready for you. Good night to Romeo Hickson, the campaign manager, specifically for the constituency of St. John. So welcome to and good night to everybody in the constituency of St. John. People from Sergeant Street, College Savannah, Concept, Pool, Lemon Arbor, Venture, Welch, Barflan, Colleton, the Glebe, Churchview, and all of St. John. Um, Good night to you guys. Welcome. So shout out to Tyrone Nurse. Shout out to Tracy Barrow. Again, shout out to Sean and Fabian, Anthony, Adrian, Diane, everybody from the N.N.P and from St. John. So, as I was saying here, government announces $300 solidarity payment amid strong corporate tax return. Right? So basically, they're saying that the government has given you $300 based off the fact that the corporation tax collection was very lucrative. Right? So the question comes up, or when people ask the question, sorry, where is the money coming from? This is where the government claimed the money is coming from, like corporation tax. So let us come down and read what is being said here. Let's come down and read what is being said here. They said thousands of Barbadians are to receive a one-off tax-free solidarity allowance of $300 after the government reported stronger than expected corporate tax revenues for 2024. Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Warren Strong, announced on Monday, referring to the Prime Minister Mayor Motley's first budget speech. Strong stated that the Prime Minister indicated in her first budget speech that as a government, we are asking the people of the nation to share the burden and to share the bounty. Government remains absolutely committed to this philosophy. Now, Mr. Strong emphasized that while Barbados has maintained fiscal discipline, external economic uncertainties prevent structural change at this time, and the government continues to maintain fiscal discipline, and notwithstanding the fact that the corporate tax regime performed better than expected in 2024. Recent events in the rapidly evolving external environment prevents us from making structural changes as we do not know yet what will happen internationally in the next few months. So we must therefore look at other options to ensure that there is a benefit to Bajans from this enhanced corporate tax revenue that we received this year. A part of this commitment to sharing the bounty with citizens, the government will distribute a one-off solidarity allowance of $300 free from income tax to eligible citizens and residents according to Strong. Every Bajan 18 years old and every person with legal status who has contributed to the National Insurance Scheme in the last year will qualify for the Solidarity Allowance. The National Insurance Scheme will administer the payment of these allowances. The initiative follows a similar approach implemented in Guyana in 2024, where hundreds of thousands of Guyanese citizens at home and abroad aged 18 and over received cash payments of approximately 100,000 Guyanese dollars, which works out to be approximately 964 US dollars in response to high oil revenue earnings. So that is where Guyana got the ability to pay out this cash grant from their oil revenues, right? And Barbados paid out the cash grant out of corporate tax revenues, right? then goes on to say here that in addition, all national insurance contributory pensioners, all non-contributory pensioners, including those accessing the special needs grant, persons receiving invalidity benefits from the National Insurance Scheme, and welfare clients receiving support will all qualify for the Solidarity Allowance. So basically, most people who receive NAS benefits, right? So people who paid into the scheme, non-contributory persons who didn't pay into the scheme but still get benefits, persons who receive the special needs grant, persons who receive invalidity benefits, and persons who receive welfare from the national insurance, they will still receive solidarity allowance. Right? So all who were getting a check for national insurance, or you will get the check or the $300, this cash grant. So well, finishing the article, it says recognizing that some individuals may not fall into these categories, Strawn announced a process for those who have not worked in the last year or otherwise or who are otherwise ineligible under the stated criteria. So for those persons who didn't pay into the scheme, for those persons who were not receiving NAS benefits or check, right, and you didn't fall into the criteria, the government and the Ministry of Finance is saying that they provided an alternate route for those persons. So he said that we know that these categories are not exhaustive, right? And there are persons who are not on welfare, and others who have not worked in the last 12 months and are not in any of the groups mentioned above. We will therefore encourage persons who do not fall immediately in any of the above categories to come forward to the designated points across the country that will be advertised and present themselves, and you must bring your national ID card as some proof of address. A due diligence check will be made, and persons will thereafter receive their solidarity allowance. Right? And it said that the application for people falling outside of these categories, the deadline for that application will be June 30th. Right? June 30th. And this article was published January, February, March the 11th of 2025. Right? So this was announced. This cash grant was announced. If I'm correct, in March 2025. Right? And again, where the money coming from? It's coming from, according to the government, stronger than expected corporate tax revenues for the year of 2024. Right? Now, it is indeed the fact that corporate tax revenues did perform quite well. Maybe they should have had an exact figure as to how much the corporation tax collected overall, but we could provide that on here as well at some point. So we give you the basic explanation of the cash grant, right? So the designated points, right? The designated points according to the minister, right? The designated points according to the minister would have been the post offices. You see pictures all around with people lining up to the cash grant. I'm more sure I saw a picture. So we saw persons lining up all over to get the cash grant. But those persons who are lining up, as was said in the article, are persons who did not contribute. Right? Are persons who did not contribute to the national insurance. over the last 12 months. So don't get caught up with the language. Don't get caught up with the language. Right? Don't get caught up with the language. A person who did not contribute in the last 12 months does not mean that you're unemployed, because we have self-employed people, self-employed people, right, who don't pay into the national insurance, right? Self-employed people who don't pay to the national insurance. So if you are a self-employed businessman who has not paid into the national insurance over the last 12 months, but for some reason you want to go and grab that $300, right? You want to go and grab that $300. When you go and register your information, right? When you go and register your information, well, then you will see that the $300 wasn't exactly a free cash grab, right? A free cash grab. It's not exactly a free cash grab, because what you're trading off Barbadians and Guyanese and Solutions and Pensations, right? You're trading your information. You're trading your banking information. Right? You're trading your Thomas information. Right? You're trading your Thomas information. So therefore, government will have, when you go and register, which means they already have this information. Right? I would say, well, one government entity in majority has this information. The Barbados Revenue Authority has this information, right, already sitting on the book. So the government knows. However, government is trying to fill the information bottleneck, and that information bottleneck simply could come down to the fact that it could come down to the fact that, say for example, there's a difficulty. There's a difficulty in having information transfer between the Barbados Revenue Authority and BRA. Right? So if BRA decides that they don't want to send over the tax information, well, then the NAS still needs to get that information. So the NAS is sending out these type of operations, and they're called surveillance operations. Right? They're called surveillance operations to be able to observe persons who are banked, right? So persons who have bank accounts, so they will be able to, and NAS will be able to gauge who has a bank account versus who doesn't have a bank account, right? If you enter your Thomas, well, they would have your full Thomas information, so they'll be able to determine, if you filed your taxes, you'll be able to determine, your tax outlook. So these are called surveillance operations. So that is not a term that I made up. That is not a term that I made up. That is a term that is used by the International Monetary Fund. And we're going to get into that for a bit. We're going to get into that for a bit, where we discuss surveillance programs, right? Surveillance programs. We're going to discuss that. Now, I am trying to get the figure where we can quote exactly, which is where can one find a statement that reflects the corporate tax revenue what percentage of said revenue was allotted to the Solidarity Fund. Now, as far as I know, I don't know if there's something called somebody will have to send me that statement, but I cannot remember the establishment of anything called a Solidarity Fund. I cannot recall. I cannot recall anything remotely naming a Solidarity Fund. And if I can remember or jog my memory, the only Solidarity Fund I could remember is or was around the time of COVID when you had to roll out the jobs, that there was some type of payments going into a fund which was quite similar to a Solidarity Fund. Um, yeah, around the times with the job. So made me think about something there, honestly. But I'm trying to get that document for you right now, brother, on the corporate tax revenues of government, so that you can see exactly here. So that you can see exactly here what corporate tax revenue the government earned. So I have the document in sight that we're going to quote from. We have the document in sight that we're going to quote from. So I'm just trying to get that section up for you, way that we can reference it direct. Okay. It says here, people, according to the Central Bank of Barbados' review of the last review of 2025, it says direct tax revenue expanded significantly. Well, let me do better than I am doing. Let me try to get it up for you to read, to see it as well. Let me do better than that. Right. So just let me know if you can see my screen now. So this is the Central Bank of Barbados' report, right? And you can see the section right here where it says revenue. So it said direct tax revenue expanded significantly, driven mainly by corporate tax collections. Corporate tax collections increased by $463 million, reflecting the impact of adjusted tax rates, the implementation of a new accounting framework for insurance companies, and improved profitability among multinational enterprises. So it said it increased by that amount, but I want to see it there. And I'm going to tear that down for a second, but I'm going to put it back up because I want to see exactly how much the tax made of it in itself. It said it increased by that amount. It said it increased by that amount. So let me keep scrolling. Right? Let me keep scrolling. And we are looking for the exact amount that corporation tax earned the government of Barbados. So I hope yes, I am looking for that amount for you, beware. that we can reference it. So I took it off the screen for a second, but I'm going to put it back up as soon as I get to that specific section. Good night to Marcia Miller. Welcome to the N.N.P's live stream. We're discussing the $300 grant tonight in a technical form. But let me welcome the chairman of the New National Party. As soon as he gets his camera ready, he will signal and we would have him in. But the chairman of the New National Party is going to join us in a quick second, Mr. Joseph Pedagan. So while he gets his end fixed, we are going to look for how much taxes the government of Barbados collected in terms of corporate revenues. So here we have it. Here we have it. So let me bring it for you. Let me bring it for you here. Getting it up. Good night to you, Adrian X, and welcome to tonight's platform as well. We're discussing the $300 grant. So we are following the train of thought that was put out there by the officials, and we're trying to break this thing down and break it right open, that the people could see for themselves what this thing is all about. So, where you asked, and we are delivering. How much? So you can see here a summary of government's operations. Total revenue, total revenue. So the central bank report, the latest central bank report on Barbados, 2025, indicated that the total revenue collected for 2024 and the last quarter into 2025, the government collected $3.9 billion. Like $3.9 billion. $3.9 billion. Now, I want to ask you guys to share this program because this is very important. Like, this is factual. If this is the facts of the case, this is not political trap or trade. But this information is critical. So I'm asking persons to like and share this program, share it on Facebook, share it on WhatsApp, share it all over, right? So without the fanfare and the pomp and the pageantry, let's break it right down. So we started by saying that the government indicated that they are paying, right? They are paying the $300 grant out of corporate taxation, right? So let us look at all of the government tax revenue, inclusive of that corporate taxation. So let's take a zoom in here. You're seeing right here, total tax revenue of government was 3.9 billion. 3.9 billion. Out of that total revenue, the government collected 3.7 billion in tax revenue. Right. So if you look at my mouse here, hoping you can see the mouse on the screen, cursor right here. Right. But it says tax revenue. I look at the growth in tax revenue. Look at the growth in tax revenue since 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Right? So in 2019, the government collected $2.7 billion in tax revenue. Right? That's 2019. But in 2024-25, the government collected 3.7 billion. Right? So that is an increase of approximately, right, $1 billion in tax revenue, right, over the period of 2019 and 2025. Right? The government is collecting $1 billion more in taxes. Right? In total tax revenue. So here's the central bank. These are not my numbers. These are the central bank's numbers produced in the last report. So let us go in now to the corporate tax revenue, because remember the government said they're paying the $300. They're paying the $300 out of corporate taxes, and they said that you had, I think it was $463 million approximately, an increase of that in corporate taxes. Right? So look at the corporate tax collection. In 2019, we were collecting $309 million in corporation tax. In 2020, we collected $612 million in corporation tax. Right? So you can see that during COVID years, right, that during COVID years, COVID hit Barbados in 2020. So there was a doubling. There was a doubling in corporate tax collection during the COVID years. So that, and it was said earlier in the same central bank report that profitability of the multinational corporations led to the majority of this tax increase. So it means that the businesses that were operating here were extremely profitable, that there was could be a doubling in corporate tax collection. So 2021 you had a drop off, obviously because this is where we're feeling the total impacts of COVID. Right? 2022 it went back up again. 2023 it kept almost steady, outperforming the last year. But by 2024 you had a doubling again of corporate tax collection between 2023, 2024, and 2025. So it jumped from $563 million to $1 billion in corporate tax collection. Right? So exactly who are these big earners? Right? Exactly, could you identify some of these corporations that are recording such high levels of profitability? Right? So yes, the let us welcome the chairman of the N.N.P, Joseph Cadogan. Welcome, Joe. How are you doing tonight, sir? We're not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. I am not hearing you at all. So sign out and sign back in, Joe, and see if that fixes the problem. I'm not hearing you at all. So I was saying here, I was saying here, right? Look at, we're gonna bring it up close to the screen, right? Look at the massive jump, right? Look at the massive jump in corporate tax collection, which went from $563 million to $1 billion in a year's time. Right? So here you have it, where the government said that 400 and some plus $1 million increase. Right? Here you have it that the government said you had this massive increase, and they are now paying no cash grants out of this massive increase. But for me, these figures were calculated for 2024 because the financial year ends, say, around like March. So in February, that's the last quarter in the year. Right? So April 1st starts the new financial year. So this particular report, January, February, March. So this particular report, right, was produced by the Central Bank of Barbados. This was the last governor's report. So let us look at that one more time. Corporate tax collection. You see the massive increase. Right? So according to the government, this massive increase here and the doubling of tax collection in terms of corporate revenues, they were able to share some of this bounty. Right? Now, if you look at personal income taxes, you will see roughly that the government is making 450 million dollars average. I would average it about $450 million a year from personal taxes. Right? You can see here also property taxes as well. Right? So there is evidence or a financial trail in terms of where the money is coming from. Now, I would like to know, and question that this is the same question that Adrian X is asking. Gaining double tax revenue during COVID sounds a bit much. I would like to know who these companies are. So that is where freedom of information and that's where freedom of information and transparency on behalf of the authorities would come in. I wouldn't know that part. The government would have to come and say who are their biggest tax persons who pay the biggest tax rolls in Barbados. I don't know who they are. So let us look briefly at the indirect taxes. Like the indirect taxes in Barbados. The indirect taxes in Barbados. So indirect tax collection roughly about $1.8 billion for 2024 into 2025. So you have stamp duties, you have VAT, you have excise tax, import duties, that was an SR, but that was phased out. You have other, and then you have the fuel tax, you have the room rate levy, right? You have non-tax revenue and grants. So you can see there how much you had in grants, etc., etc., etc. So as you know, VAT is one of the biggest line items in terms of tax collection, and VAT collection is over $1 billion for the last year. So you can see in 2019, VAT collection stood at 966 million. 2020 it dropped. This is during COVID. For 2020 it went back up drastically for 2021, and then there was a massive increase from 884 million went up to a billion, and then it tapered off again, just over $1 billion in VAT collection. So this is just a rough breakdown of the tax collection. But remember, we're focusing here on the payout and the origin of the payout, which came from again corporate taxes. So let us look at how much money the government has been spending, because persons are definitely going to be concerned about spending and the ability to spend for the government's spending habits. Sorry, like government spending habits. Sorry. So In 2019, the government was spending roughly $2.4 billion in expenditure. In 2025, the government is spending $3.3 billion in expenditure. Hey, $2.4 billion in 2019. Hey, the government was spending that money in in current expenditure. No, they're spending $3.3 billion. So you're saying that there's a massive increase in government expenses, right? So exactly where is this expense coming from, right? Where exactly is this expense coming from, right? Where exactly is this expense government coming from for government that they're increasing their expenditure at such a rapid rate? No, let us scroll through. Let us scroll through. So look at what the government spends its money on. Are the biggest items the government spends its money on: wages and salaries, goods and services, interest, right? Interest, right? So both external interest and local interest on that. Transfers and subsidies. So that's money that central government gives over to water authority, school meals, sports council, CBC, national housing, the hospital, schools. So transfers and subsidies, grants to individuals, grants to public institutions, subsidies, whatever, whatever. So let us look at it quickly. Let us look at it quickly. Let us look at it quickly, and then we're gonna move on. In 2019, you could clearly see, right, that government's wage bill in 2019 is, you know, about say $77 million higher. Wages and salaries, roughly $77 million higher. So it shows that government is still, right, government is still increasing the wage bill. You know, we had a couple of wage increases along the way that was send it up. Consultancies. Oh, you're right. Goods and services. So goods and services, meaning the things that the government provide, you could see that there has been an increase in the goods and services provided by government. Interest, right? Interest, interest. So based off what you can see here, right, you can see that the government increased goods and services within the economy, right, which would obviously drive, higher levels of economic activity. You see wages went up, right? So to drive goods and services, obviously you have to put money in wages as well, right? To be able to pay people to provide these goods and services. Now let us look at the interest. And you will see that in 2019, right, interest, let's zoom in. In 2019, right, interest was $249 million. Let us scroll across. You will see the growth in interest. So 2020, 2020, interest went up to 342 million. And you see the growth: 342, 398.9. Then there's a massive jump in interest up to 549 million. And then if you look here again now, let me zoom out so we get those headings correctly. if you look here at interest, right? This is 2023, 2024, and then 2024, 2025. Interest bill is at $749 million, right? Which shows you a massive jump, right? From $249 million in 2019, that by 2025, interest is now at $749 million. So it shows you clearly where the government or the majority of government's expenditure or these increases in government's expenditure, where they're going, right? Where they're going. It's going exactly to the payment of interest along with providing the wages and salaries to go along with it. Right? So the cash grant, as was proven here by the document, came out of again the corporate tax collection, right? And then it showed you government's expenses, right? Just to further prove the point. To see, um, somebody gave me the direct figure as to what was quoted in the newspaper, as to the total payout so far for the cash grant. Right? There was an article on it, so maybe somebody could toss it in the comments. Let us, let's reference it. But there was a total payout. There was a total payout for so. So let's welcome Joseph, if you can get him in here. Welcome, Joe. I don't know if it is Mike, but I cannot hear it. I am not getting any song whatsoever from you. Not getting any song, Joe. If you have in a headphone, try plugging it out. Um, see if we can get you then. Yeah. I am not hearing you at all, Joseph. Maybe try another device, you know, try another device or so, but I'm not getting your volume at all. Yeah. Right, so in the meantime, Joseph, tries to patch in the conversation because we really love to get him in here. I just want to slow down for a bit before we jump on or jump deeper now into the cash grab and show it from the technical perspective exactly this cash grab business. So we're gonna break down the different levels of cash grab and different levels of transfers. We're also gonna look at how these programs are called surveillance programs to be able to manage the social safety net issue. Right? So if you listen to the International Monetary Fund, because remember, alternate views debate spoke extensively to Barbados's signing on to the IMF program. So as Barbados proceeds, and you're hearing it in the media, that Barbados has the IMF on speed dial. That Barbados has the IMF on speed dial. Now, let me just say that the reason for the program two is that we did not complete the structural reforms. The reason for program three is that we did not complete structural reforms. So we proved it many times that the structural reforms to the Barbados economy were not happening. I read a document earlier. Ryan Strong. I quoted Ryan Strong, where he said that based off the international arena, that they were not allowed to do the reforms. Right? So the fact that government may not be proceeding with the IMF reforms and they may not be doing what's required of them and they continue to delay the reforms, right? Along with the fact that there are penalties, right? There are penalties attached to countries who want to stay to IMF programs for extended amounts of time. So you have to pay, you have to pay, right? You have to pay to be part of the IMF, right? So to encourage countries to come off the nipple, right? The conditionalities and the fines and the fees are higher to dissuade countries from doing it. So Barbados probably took a financial decision to come out the program, right? Because it would have been financial punishment for us to continue under the same old arrangements, right? But I think the government knows full well that as they proceed over the next couple of months, right? As they proceed over the next couple of months, that they will have to implement the structural reforms, and they will have to go back to the IMF. Right? The government will have to pick up the phone and call the IMF. But the reason why they have it on speed dial is because the IMF continues to surveil and monitor the health of the Barbados economy almost perpetually. Right? So we have a bill due to the IMF of $929 million by 2029. So it can't be classified as an exit, right? It cannot be classified as an exit, right? Because the debts are still due, payments are still required by the fund, and therefore, by saying to the public that we're not no longer under an IMF program, but you still have to implement the reforms as agreed to. You still have to implement the reforms as agreed to. And it could very well be the case that because the government's refusal to implement the reforms based off the fact that they don't want to lose political popularity, eh, because significant disruption will occur in the Barbados economy if these reforms are implemented. So, structural changes at Barbados Water Authority, the structural changes at the Barbados Water Authority will see wages and salaries cut and impacted. So jobs have to be cut throughout the public sector. Right? The wage bill has to come down throughout the public sector. But you're saying that the wage bill is going up. Now, if we go and pull IMF documentation from the first couple of programs, you will see that the government was supposed to cut the wage bill. Mm. What the government craftily did was to remove these state-owned enterprises off government books. So Water Authority is financed by the garbage and sewage tax. So they removed the transfer or cut the transfer to Water Authority, implemented the sewage tax, allowed the Water Authority to collect the sewage tax to be able to fund itself directly from the taxpayers, and the money don't have to come from central government. So that's a very crafty, and I don't want to say deceptive because it's more, that's a very crafty and strategic way of lowering your so-called transfers, lowering your so-called expenses on paper. However, these entities still function and these entities still run, and no changes are being made to restructure them. Right? So, Water Authority is still bleeding millions of dollars yearly. Right? CBC, National Housing, Rural Development Commission, the Barbados, right? The Barbados Agricultural Development BADMC, the restructuring the sugar industry, right? And in fact, that government has to get out to many industries because they're no longer financially lucrative. I would say they're bleeding government's pockets. So government is being encouraged to privatize these industries, right? The airport, the government was intended to privatize the airport or lease it out for for 30 years because they don't let the word privatize, but lease out. So a lot of these things were not done, and they have to be done. So because of government's inability or failure to have them done, therefore the IMF basically cut the credit card, say no more money, no more money until you do what you're supposed to do and implement structural reforms to restructure your economy according to the first work program, the second work program, and now impending the third work program. Right? So the cash grant now, essentially, right, is achieving two things. Right? Is achieving two things. One is establishing or following the IMF's recommendation for social safety nets right, within countries. So with austerity measures, there's significant social fallout. Right? There's significant social fallout with austerity measures. So I like to bring proof. I like to bring proof. Adrian S is correct. The authorities are basically in a state of perpetual fear because the austerity measures they have to impose on the country will cause them to lose serious political favor. So, what authorities intended to be restructured, how would the government look coming to Barbados to say, well, we have to increase water rates right now after they just put the sewage tax on Barbadians? Like, how would the government look coming to the public to say, well, we have to increase bus fares from $3.50 to $5? Right? But whenever the cashless system, right, another failure of government, right, government was unable to implement the cashless system in transport board. Right? So to be able to afford the transition and the implementation of the cashless system without increasing without being an increase on government books, what service does transport board offer to the public? Transportation services, right? Bus services. So therefore, your main revenue stream is those bus services, transportation services. So to earn more revenue, you have to increase the price of bus fares. So therefore, the price of bus fare is liable to go to $5. Water rates are liable to be increased from that flat $30 rate. So if you read your water bill, you will see that there are two segments: the garbage and sewage tax segment, and then the actual cost of the water. Now, the segment that I'm dealing with is the actual cost of the water. So to increase the revenue aspect of the water authority, right, an increase in water rates would right size or help adjust the water authority to be in good financial state according to the economic measures being prescribed. So these things sound good to speak about, but to actually bring them to the population, will cause significant political fallout. So therefore, delaying it and delaying it and delaying it and delaying it till possibly after a general election would be more than likely the option that a government would utilize. Right? A government will utilize instead of if you implement these measures before an election, be sure to lose. But if you have an election and then you implement them after, well, you got 5 years to last. So some things to think about, people. So I have the document here. I have the document here. I have the document here. So let me put it up right here for you, my people. I haven't seen Joseph come back on as yet. Really love him to get in this conversation. So good night to all of the viewers. Don't forget to share this program. Don't forget to share this program. We're dealing with the cash grant. We're dealing with the cash grant and the full breakdown of the cash grant. So let us look at what the IMF is saying about social safety nets. Like social safety nets. So the IMF managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, if I have that pronounced correctly, she often speaks about social safety nets. When Christine Lagarde was the head of the IMF, she often spoke about social safety net. So it says here, IMF country teams have become increasingly engaged on social safety net issues as part of their surveillance and program work. Social safety nets are intrinsically important in preventing and alleviating poverty and promoting inclusive growth. In addition, they can help promote social stability and strengthen public support for macroeconomic and structural reforms needed for macroeconomic stability and sustainable growth. So you know what the fancy talk. So let me bring it down that everybody could follow it. So it says here these social safety net transfers, like the cash grant, right, can also increase household resilience to adverse shocks by preventing them from falling deeper into poverty. In addition to this protection role, social safety net programs are often designed to play a promotion role, enhancing the human and physical capital of households and support them in pulling themselves out of poverty and avoiding future poverty. Right? So it then goes on to say here, IMF engagement on social safety net issues is likely to continue to expand as member countries like Barbados respond to growing challenges in the economic and fiscal landscape. Such challenges include economic volatility, so that's like turbulence in the economy and shocks. So when things happen that you know, so it says it includes higher food and energy prices, oil prices, and pandemics, which have recently reinforced the importance of social safety nets in protecting populations from economic shocks. So the changing nature of the world, which presents challenges to labor markets and existing social insurance programs. Three, climate change, which is expected to increase weather volatility, so extreme heat, extreme cold, drought conditions, those type of things. The frequency and the intensity of natural disasters that negatively impact people and economic activity. So these changes tend to disproportionately adversely affect low income households with limited capacity to adapt and to cope with these shocks, and social safety nets can play a central role in supporting them in this regard. Right? So it says here that the IMF's 2019 social spending strategy, that this paper provides guidance to the staff on when and how to engage social safety nets, both in surveillance and program work. Right? So let me come down here, because that was just the introduction of it. That was just the introduction of it. This part here is critical. Hey, let me zoom in on it. It says here that spending on social safety nets is substantially lower in lower income countries And many of these countries aspire to scale up social spending as part of their commitment to reduce poverty and foster development and inclusive growth. Social safety nets are instrumentally important in supporting the implementation of hear that, of economic and structural reforms like what Barbados agreed to and like what Ryan said that the government was unable to do, right? And these economic and structural reforms that are needed to support macroeconomic stability and enhance sustainable growth. So, for example, reforming the food and energy subsidies, broadening the tax bases, and consolidating public financing, right? And liberalizing job markets and international trade, right? So, let me go down here to what this paper defines as a social safety net or an example of a social safety net, right? Yes, I see Joseph is having some challenges. I hope he gets that sorted out correct quickly so that he could come on here. Here's it. So look at what it says here. A typical safe social safety net program component. Right? So it says here social safety nets encompass a wide variety of non-contributory programs designed to target households from poverty and destitution. They include cash transfer programs. Here you have it. Cash transfer programs. First in line, cash transfer programs. So I told you guys about social safety nets and these surveillance programs, cash transfer programs, and these programs offer periodic monetary transfers with the objective of providing regular and predictable income support to beneficiaries. So our national insurance scheme is in general a social safety net. So national insurance in its iteration is a social safety net program, right? And it's also set up there to surveil and monitor the population, and it is there to provide a prescribed programs to help target and alleviate poverty. National insurance. So the IMF is saying here that cash transfer programs, right? And it says this category covers a wide range of programs, including poverty targeted cash transfers, family, children, and orphan allowances, including benefits for vulnerable children, and non contributory funeral grants and burial allowances. This includes both conditional and unconditional cash transfer programs. So I'm hoping that you're seeing the origins of, you know, these payout type of programs that are happening all through the Caribbean. So social pensions, so these are regular cash transfers provided exclusively to the elderly, which unlike contributory pensions do not require prior contributions. So social pensions may be universal or targeted to the poor and the vulnerable, right? So you will learn later what's the difference between a universal income and a targeted income. Right? So the $300 program is basically a universal income program, right? It's a universal income program. So ask the government, right? Ask the government, or not only ask the government, but ask the DLP as well, right? Ask them, ask persons who are speaking about it, right? If the cash grant program, right, is a test run or a dry run for a universal basic income for Barbadians. right? Ask the Ministry of Finance, ask any of the government spokesperson of finance, ask Minister Restaurant, ask Kemar, who's the Minister of Economic Affairs, and you can also ask the Prime Minister if this cash grant program is a dry run or a test run for universal basic income for all Barbadians. So let me go on here. So school feeding programs at the school meal service in Barbados, it said these programs supply meals or snacks for children at schools, including take-home food rations for children's families. Right. So the schools is definitely a way to target poverty by allowing children access to food, subsidized food, and take-home programs. But I don't know if you have a take-home program in Barbados, but maybe that is an idea that the new national party could bring in terms of having a full take-home program for serious cases of poverty within the schools. So, if you hear it on any political platform, you can say that the N.N.P, in general discussion, float the idea out there that maybe we could have a full take-home program. So, it goes on here to speak about fee waivers and targeted subsidies. But coming back here, right, a social safety net encompasses a wide variety of non-contributory transfer programs designed to protect households, and then it spoke to the cash transfer program, right? So that grant program again asks the government if it is a dry run or test run for a universal basic income to see how it would work. Also, ask the government, right? Ask the government as well, because remember, changes are coming to the national insurance. Right? So, as you know, pension age is going up, contribution rates are going up as well. Ask the government as well, right? Ask the government as well if they are also testing out a way to fully digitize the national insurance scheme. Like, ask the government if this $300 cash program is also a way to facilitate the digitization of the national insurance scheme, right? By collecting TAMIS and bank accounts to have direct payments from the NAS straight to people's bank account, right? And for those persons who don't have bank accounts, or those persons who they said were not on the list, but you had to go and register, well, then those persons, right? Then those persons who are receiving the check, right? Then those persons who are receiving the check would be the few that the government will continue to give a check to, but also put or try to put some stipulation in place for future that they would try to encourage them through the implementation of the digital ID, right? Try to encourage them by saying that they have to have the digital ID. So if you don't have a bank account and you don't have all of that, and you don't fall in the category, they try to encourage you by saying that you should have the digital ID, right? And then you would they would facilitate a bank account, and then they would pay future cash grants to you through that ID and through that government sponsored or government recommended bank account, right? And then that will facilitate the full phasing out of checks, right? Then that will facilitate the full phasing out of checks being paid out to the national insurance. So I ask the government, right, why they chose the national insurance to do this, and I ask them if they are testing out universal basic income and ask them also if they are trying to facilitate the digitalization of the national insurance, right? By trying to facilitate majority of these payments through direct payment to bank accounts, right? And for those persons who, again, they fall in the category and fall outside the bank account and the damage category, you go and register. If they are not encouraging those persons to have the digital ID, right? And encouraging those persons also to look at getting a bank account and pinning that account to that ID so that they could be able to receive future cash grants through that ID. So ask them that. Ask them those questions, right? Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the rhetoric by telling people that they're hungry have to go for $300. Right? Don't get caught up in the political. I call it the political crap I hear coming up from people by trying to insult people who would go for the $300. You educate people, educate them on what exactly is happening, and allow them to make the choice on if they want to go for that $300 or not. Because $300 right now could save so many people. It could buy a ham, it could buy a chicken, it could buy a tuna, couple cases of tuna. Right? So for those persons who are looking down on it, right? There are so many people in Barbados. That's the reason why people going up there are standing up in those lines for just $300. It's because people are suffering in this country and the people are hungry, so they're going for the money. So I cry shame on any politician who would try to make people feel like they are less or try to downgrade people because they jump at the $300. They have to jump at it because the economic conditions in Barbados they are hard, right? When that $300 will determine if many people eat for the next week or not. So again, don't downgrade people for going for it, but educate them and show them exactly the intent or the intention behind or the construct behind the reason why the government will send the people, here's a free $300. So that is my position on that. So many people, many people who are talking never experienced poverty, never experienced hunger to that level, never experienced abandonment, never experienced being, like, never experienced nobody to help them, never experienced a whole household unemployed, and $300 right now sound real good. So Pedro is asking me, what's your opinion for giving the $300? Pedro, I spent the last hour and a half explaining my reasons and rationale for the giving the $300. I spent the entire evening explaining and breaking it down from the origins of the $300, right? We explained the social safety net. We explained the breakdown in terms of what exactly is a cash grant. We explained the digitization of the national insurance scheme. We explained a test run for universal basic income, right? We explained a test run for the phasing out of checks, and for those persons who do go for the checks, there's an encouragement in place to get the ID, the digital ID, right? And to get those persons to get a bank account and pin that account to that ID so that for future and there any more cash grants that the government ain't gonna necessarily be issuing any checks. They will be issuing it directly to a bank account or directly to the account into a digital ID. So that is what it's basically all about. So the $300, right, is basically a catch, right? It's basically a catch. Give me the $300, but the information that you'll be entering in the system will allow government to set up its surveillance program through the social safety net, right, to be able to monitor, right, to be able to monitor what is happening within the Barbados economy. So my thing is, I would like the $300 to be more, right? Because you clearly saw from the tax revenues $1 billion in income tax, and if I can remember, I think the government said they paid out like 30 something $1 million in cash grants. I think that you could have afford 100 million in cash grants based off the fact that you made $1 billion in corporate tax revenue. So the money could have been higher, right? It could have been more than $300 based off the fact that you made $1 billion in corporate tax revenue, right? And you had a doubling of corporate tax revenue from 500 and some $1 million over to $1 billion. So the $300 could have been substantially more money. Right? So if they paid $30 million so far and they said a hundred, a hundred and some, 130 something thousand people got it, the claim, right? You didn't reach $100 million yet. So you could have spent $100 million on the people of Barbados comfortable and still not chip in to the corporate tax revenues because $1 billion. So the $300 could have been more and substantially more. And the proof is there. And we put the proof on the screen that it could have been substantially more. So don't let people tell you that you're ungrateful if you're calling for more. Because the facts are there that the government could have offered substantially more than the $300 based off the level of corporate taxation, the level of corporate taxation they're collected. So don't be pulled in to the hype of the election. Don't be pulled in by the fancy talk and the rhetoric of electioneering and election um, platforms. Regardless of who wins this by election, structural reforms have to come because we took money to do these reforms. So regardless of who wins the election, if the government side win the election, if the government side win the election, structural reforms are still coming. If the opposition wins the election, well, that's just one more voice cried and still can't do anything to stop what is heading Barbados' way. So a win for the government or the opposition is not a win for the people of Barbados, right? It is not a win for the people of Barbados regardless of where they vote right now. So let us remain focused on the fact that Barbados needs to come first, right? I need an overall overhaul in the way things are going. So let us come down here. Let us come down here to explain a bit more. So let us look at labor market programs, right? Labor market programs, which deals with these, social safety nets. So a labor market program comprises of contributory and non-contributory programs designed to protect individuals against loss of income from unemployment and underemployment and help them acquire skills that connect them to labor markets, right? So a passive labor market program would be to provide temporary income support to unemployed or underemployed workers, allowing individuals to smooth consumption and preventing them from falling into poverty. Unemployment income support can also act as an automatic stabilizer and support structural change. Right? So contributory unemployment schemes, which take the form of insurance based on collecting, financing, and pooling of unemployment risks. So, to get unemployment when you're working, you go paying something, so you get unemployment. So, unemployment benefits, right? So, when you're working and you pay the NAS, when you become unemployed, you get unemployment benefits. So, that is a form of, again, that's a form of social safety net, right? Non contributory schemes. So persons who they provide benefits to unemployed workers who don't meet the criteria for receiving contributory benefits or have exhausted their entitlements. A program like that could be rolled out or kept in place to help alleviate poverty. Right? Employment retention schemes providing full or partial labor income replacement during a temporary suspension of work without a break in the employment relationship. Let's get all into that part. You know, that would change the definite course of the conversation. So here is it now. The part that I really want to get to. The part that I really want to get to. Joe, could you try to get in here or are you still having challenges?
Yes, yes. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. You can hear me
Yes,
now,
I can
good,
hear you.
Kemar?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
go
good
ahead, go
evening.
ahead.
I am very well enjoying your statement there. It sounds very well. But going after it, I will, make a statement really as it relates to this 300 grant. It cannot be a long, if it cannot be a long-term solution. But what I would say is, why we would welcome the offer to Barbadians family. These challenging times, we must be honest about what a one-time cash grant truly represents, right? For some, as you know, you talked earlier about, bills. It can also be used for, transportation costs, something like that. But my concern basically is, what does this grant generously do to appear? Well, will it be affecting like the rising cost of living, the worsened jobs market, the strain on the healthcare system, and the growing gap between the wealth and the working poor? But if it does not tackle inflation, to me, it does not create jobs. And if it does not fix our public transportation system or lower food prices, um, then our people deserve more than just a temporary patch. No, our citizens deserve much more. They deserve a policy to empower them, uh, uplift them, and transform. You know, when we look at the situation we are here in Barbados, we are really most of them are struggling to make ends meet, and the cost of living is very expensive. Uh, I myself will be thinking, what happened after this 300 is spent? What are their other plans? Uh, will the people be left to struggle again? Those are things that I'm also thinking about and also looking at across the board. Well, what I would say is that the government can be actually could follow up a grant with a bold, transparent policy. When I said a bold, transparent policy going forward, I would be looking at a couple of issues here where I would look at basically we could look at creating meaningful employment, right? Also look at lowering food prices and energy prices. We got to look at strengthening the healthcare and the educational system. These are areas that really needs to be looked at properly. and ensure accountability for the public spending. Right. But as you look at it, I say a lot of people are like you said it earlier. You cover rules where people are arguing about not going for it, and that's it. But I come to the conclusion where I say to myself that Barbadians are not really beggars, but they're proud, hardworking people asking for opportunities. We need opportunities, not just charity, to put out there. So when we say that we look not charity, we're looking at a meaningfulness for the people to spend meaningful. Because when you look at your overall cost of spending, and you look at $300 today, and then that's gone, then you're still back to square one. That means you didn't make much of a difference. But I could see earlier you made some very good valid points for the amount of money the government has brought in and stuff like that. And I truly believe, I honestly believe that we as a NNP going forward, a party going forward, we have a lot to put out there. We have a lot to present to the people in the public. You know. And I think, Kemar, that you have a very, very strong policies you got to put forward. And I see that they're very brilliant and I like them very much. But in my final last saying here, what I want to say finally is let this not be the end of support. That's what I'm asking. Let it not be the end of support. What I need to see is, but let it be the beginning of a serious national convention about where we are heading, right? And that's something I want you to look at where we're heading and how we truly is going to build a Barbados that will work for all the citizens in it, right? Especially the poor people. You have to look at that. And that's something that a lot of people needs to be the government needs to be addressing, and we also are looking at that. We have a lot of good ideas, and I know that the people there are listening, and we are strong with our policies we are coming with. So I would advise everybody to keep on with us and keep following us. And we are going to be giving you more, especially with Kemar. Kemar, you're strong, and I want to say that to you. I want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to make this little statement to the public who's watching us tonight. And I hope we come together more, and I hope that we will give them more in the long run. Thank you, brother.
And thank you very much, Joe, for that intro. Good to have you on the conversation as we proceed. You can jump in the convo and make and
Correct.
make and make some points. Now,
Correct.
as usual, people ask us for solutions. We constantly provide solutions within breaking down the challenges. We constantly say, well, this is what you should do. So I would never oppose giving out a cash grant. I would never oppose
Good.
giving out a cash grant.
I agree with you.
So my thing is, our solution would be that we would have given the revenue we made. Our solution would be that we would have paid out more. Right? We would have paid out
Right.
more. So we do drop solutions in and of it, but you're not gonna see us come and make a big grand um pledge promises that we do practical ideas and practical simple solutions, right, that would help the people of Barbados to see a better way forward. So but that starts with education.
Correct.
That starts with
Correct.
education. So you can't provide a solution without education. Right? So as
But then you
Adrian
will go to say
X,
that
sorry, go ahead.
no. Then what you're saying we can't provide a solution. But what I'm saying to you is that what we look at is if we have a problem, we have to have a solution to that problem, right?
But you
But
first need to become
going forward,
educated about it.
correct.
But you were saying something before I cut you off. Sorry.
So what I was saying, I was actually looking at, I have been studying this whole thing here to educate the people. We have a lot of issues when it comes to like even wages for people. Um, there was an issue here where the wages go up to 10.50, I am wondering, I'm not, if we can look at this thing where we can have a cost of living allowance where it attaches to you as a working person. You know, I think that structure, like years ago, I came across this cost of living allowance, and that is something that fluctuates, and it's not taxed. It's just an allowance you get with your cost of living. It's a percentage. When your inflation rises, you get that in there as a bonus. But there's a structure how to put it. So I just want to put that across to you and tell me what you feel. You think that we, as you know, you're a very heavy economist person. Um, I would want to know what would your view basically you think that we should be looking at a cost of living allowance for employees.
Hmm. Well, I won't say allowance per se. Um, However, if we had to administer books to the people of Barbados as
Hmm.
the leader of as the leader of the N.N.P, and as a young person who's seeking to lead Barbados, um, I think the major challenge, is the high taxation level. So as opposed to receiving $300 in a one-off cash grant, my practical suggestion and alternate solution would be to offer the $300 in tax relief. Right? So which tax is $45.
Right.
Right? You could offer $300 in a cash grant to not cash grant in a grant to every household, but they redeem it in garbage and sewage tax for the next couple of months.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. I see where you're heading.
So as opposed to giving him, because there's a person out here saying that $300 is an insult, right? But I'm saying that, you know, as opposed to softening the issue, right? To make it not seem like an insult. Tax relief, I give you it in garbage and sewage tax. I will give you it in, right? I will give you it in, so for example, I would reduce I can't really sell, our bonds don't really sell below $1,000 per value, but you get, you get where I'm coming from. So,
Right. I get you coming from.
right, so garbage and sewage tax, you could give a oil or fuel subsidy as well, energy subsidy as well. So, um, you can remove VAT or offer $300 in VAT free like bills for the next couple of months. Right? $300 in uh fuel tax relief for the next couple of months. I think that would be more accepted to the people of Barbados as not insulting, and you directly target it at the cost of living. So many people will take the $300, buy whatever. Is at your discretion, right? Is at your discretion.
Right.
So you spend it as it is, and you know how Barbados is. This boy will want to tell this boy how to spend their 300 and this and that. So there could be all that. Also targeted relief, switch tax, VAT on late bills, uh, fuel subsidy. You asked about a cost of living allowance. If I can remember the head of the National Union of Public Workers, a Kenny McDowell, right? A Kenny McDowell, when there was a merger of the trade unions in Barbados and the opposition, like, we had the National Union of Public Workers, we had the Barbados Workers Union headed by Tony Moore, and they led what you call the March of Disgust.
Hmm.
I'm quoting from Alternate Views now.
Mm.
Right? The march of disgust. And they would have demanded at the time a 50% reduction in the NSRL. Right? The government wanted a cut in that to 5%, from 10 down to 5. The government also, well, not the government, the unions, sorry, right, also wanted what they call a coping subsidy, right? A coping subsidy,
Mm.
right? And that coping subsidy, at the time would have assisted with the cost of living and, be able to gauge the cost of living and give the workers at the time this so-called coping subsidy. Now, this was a position that was also endorsed by many of the persons who were there. I can't recall if the opposition leader at the time, who was the prime minister now, agreed to the coping subsidy aspect. However, this idea of, this cost of living allowance or this coping subsidy was put on the table, by Akani McDowell, who was the head of the National Union of Public Workers. Right? I remember they held out for the 23% wage increase, which was highly impractical and impossible, but they held out anyhow. And when the government changed it, accepted 4%. And the prime minister, felt it so kind in her heart to then give them an additional 1%, totaling 5% in all. So for you to blockade and protest and help to pull down a entire government for a 23% wage increase that was highly impossible, right? And I believe that a reverse offer was put on the table of 12.5%, if I can recall. And they refused 12%. Did they come and accept 4%, later 1.5%? Right? So your suggestion is, I think it was a good one. But history has shown us, right, that suggestion like this, which needs the buy-in and the support of the unions, you can clearly see with the head of the Barbados Workers Union, Tony Moore, right now in Parliament, you will see that idea is going right down the river. Right? You will see, well, I can't speak for the NUPW or the head of the NUPW, because the person there is, he's not totally new, but fairly new-ish, he's been there not that long. So we don't know
Right.
his positions really on, this scope. And since the government change, I haven't heard anything about this scope and subsidies coming up from the unions or the union, period. Right? But as always, the New National Party supports one union, or we endorse fully one union, and that is the Unity Workers Union headed by General Secretary Caswell Franklin. Right? We fully
That's one
support that.
1,000%.
Yeah, we fully
Fully,
support
fully.
that emergent venture. I am a member of that union, Unity Workers Union, right? And I encourage all public workers, even private sector workers, to join the Unity Workers Union with Caswell Franklin if you want adequate and proper representation as a worker in Barbados. Let us take in a couple of comments, from the live, and then we're going to finish up what we started in terms of this cash grant.
Uh, just one thing though. I have two questions was put to me to actually ask you before we go into that. Right? Just two quick questions. Um, what's your long-term vision for Barbados under the NNP party?
My
That's
long-term
one.
vision.
Your long-term vision
But we have
as
a
the leader of the NNP. Uh-huh.
25-year plan.
Hmm.
Let me do better than that. Let me show you. Uh, let me show you.
Okay. I don't want to
Let me.
take up much of your time because we have other nights we can go into more detail. That's I just wanted you to give me a short, nothing long because we wanted to go into that another time in more detail.
Yeah, Yeah, but we definitely have to do a night where we have to sit down and give the people our total vision. You would have put the brochure out. You would have put the brochure out, but persons would still very much love to for us to sit and explain the content of the brochure to them, right?
Right.
So we're just gonna give just a quick synopsis, visually, um, as to what the N.N.P has to, or what is my long term vision, with the N.N.P. So I'm gonna share my screen with you now. Mm, yes. So, uh, hey, so this is our logo, as you know, the new National Party of Barbados, and it would have been launched on Heroes Day, April 20th. So our founding message says here, thank you for taking the time out to read the introduction of the N.N.P booklet. This political institution has been established as the birthplace of modern governance with a mission of providing solutions to the problems facing the people of Barbados as Barbados seeks to birth its identity in world affairs, being one of the world's newest republic. Right? The N.N.P wishes to restore the lost fortune of this beautiful island sitting in the Atlantic. Right? So we look at the future of Barbados, you know, and the future of Barbados rests heavily on the younger generation's genius and ability to dream, to conceptualize and achieve new and sustainable ideals, to reverse the negative social, economic, and political trends plaguing Barbados. So establishing alternative or alternate routes and avenues to nurture the best minds and skills within Barbadian society. A new People's Republic, reformed and restructured under a new presidential system where the people of Barbados actually vote for who becomes the president of Barbados, as opposed to Parliament nominating that person and the parliamentarians voting for who becomes the president. So the new National Party believes heavily that the president of Barbados, whoever becomes the president of Barbados, should be voted by the people of this country and not 30 parliamentarians. So, as usual, we acknowledge the colonial history of Barbados. Barbados coming from an independent country to being a republic. Here's a picture of Barrow and Haile Selassie, and the picture of the British flag. Hmm? And we, spoke to republic. Went through that already. So we need a republic constitution. Right, since the independence order was revoked, we need a republic constitution. Right, a republic constitution. So we need that. So briefly, and we're going to end here because we don't want to go on with this too extensive. We want to get back
Correct.
to
Correct. Correct.
the international appeal. So it said
So that briefing
Barbados
you just
is
put there. Good.
yes, Barbados is economic road to republic 2050. Right. So this is a 25-year plan that the new National Party has to fix the issues in Barbados, because I am letting you know straight off the bat. The problems we're facing can't be fixed in one term government. It can't be fixed with a two-term government, right? These problems are systemic, and they will take at least 25 years for Barbados to really see some prosperity if you're disciplined enough to make the reforms and stick to the reforms. And actually structurally change Barbados and stick to it. Like, so I said here that Barbados since 2018 has embarked on a stabilization program endorsed by the IMF as Barbados defaulted on its international debt payments and instituted the BERT plan, or the Barbados Economic and Recovery Transformation Plan. As of May 2025, Barbados is set to undertake BERT 3.0, which represents 7 full years of IMF governance. And the restructuring of the political economy in Barbados gave rise to new and modern dynamics, which are more observed in larger industrial countries. So the emerging trends within the Barbados political economy today are high public debt, high taxation levels, privatization and the sale of state-owned enterprises, growing interest costs, growing fiscal deficits, immigration from regional countries and international countries and different emerging markets into Barbados, a decline in the population and the birth rate, a high cost of living and high inflation, the erosion of and destruction of workers' rights. And we just touched on that briefly with the status of the unions, national insurance and pension reform, access to multilateral financing and alternative financing, job market access and entrepreneurial development, and lastly, crime and the issue of crime and violence. So, as a more modern society, we believe that Barbados's ideals should be laid based off truth and what a just and equal society and a fair society should be, and the N.N.P must acknowledge that Barbados was steeped in colonial warfare. However, all traditions must not be held on to, so therefore, a new rules-based society which encourages non-discrimination of various groups of human life and existence in Barbados is essential to progress. All groups in Barbados, inclusive of various arms of the government, so the church, the mosque, the synagogue, the temple, the business community, the Rastafari community, clubs, the tourists, everybody has the right to enjoy Barbados. However, there needs to be a clear line drawn in the sand as to what is socially acceptable in Barbados moving forward, and the N.N.P wants to be the party that defines or wants to assist in defining what a fair and just society will be like in Barbados over the next 25 years. So I am hoping that you know you garnered a lot. You garnered a lot from our brief summary into the
Right,
vision and into my personal vision as a leader of the N.N.P and what we want to bring to Barbados. So I'm really hoping that you got that. So I want to get back here because we're getting over time.
right,
I want to get back here to the last segment of this $300. The last segment of this $300. So shout outs to everybody on the live stream tonight. Again, shout outs to everyone from the constituency of St. John, the city, St. George, St. Lucie, St. Philip, Praise Church, everywhere. So pulling my screen back up again. Uh, whoa. Pulling my screen back up again, Joseph.
mm,
I'm almost not seeing where it was quoting from. Oh, I found it now. So the cash grant. So let's look here at a key design of social safety net programs that is a criteria for determining the eligibility for our cash transfers. So let us distinguish the difference between some of these transfers. So remember earlier I told the persons watching the New National Party stream. Hey, remember I told the persons watching this stream tonight that you will learn what is the difference between a universal transfer and what is a targeted transfer. Right? So it says here that a universal transfer, these are transfers that are available to everyone without any eligibility conditions. That is no targeting. While the idea of a universal basic income is widely discussed, no country has ever adopted it. I'm going to repeat that.
Hmm.
So the cash grant, Joe, right, the cash
Right.
grant, Joe, it tried to design the features of these social safety net programs. And as said earlier, the cash grant is a social safety net program. Right? It says here that these transfers are broken down into two. So you have universal transfers and you have targeted transfers. Right?
Hmm. Okay.
A universal transfer, it said here, these are transfers that are 1 second. A universal transfer, these are transfers that are available to everyone without any eligibility conditions. That is no targeting. Right? So let's look at the cash grant, Joe. The cash grant in Barbados says that anybody over the age of 18 could benefit.
Correct.
And then it goes on to say, well, the idea of a universal basic income is widely discussed. No country has ever adopted it. I put it on the table very early out in the show. Ask the government of Barbados if this cash grant, this $300 cash grant, if this isn't a dry run or a test run for universal basic income. Aren't you seeing it come full circle right here? Hey, let us look at a quasi universal transfer. And these are targeted, or right, these are the more targeted ones. So it said these transfers where eligibility is defined according to criteria that are typically viewed as being highly correlated with having low income. So, for instance, households with children or elderly may be deemed more likely to be poor. All households in a given category receive a transfer regardless of income.
Hmm.
Right? So, child benefit,
Interesting.
social protection, disabled, whatever. Right? So you clearly see here, based off the two levels of cash transfers to people and grants, that the Barbados government has a universal transfer system happening with this cash grant right now.
Seems that way for sure.
So ask the government again if this cash grant program is a test run or a dry run for universal basic income. So let's go down here. It says means testing transfers. These are benefits where eligibility is based on income. This requires a capacity to define, measure, and define and verify means. Right? You don't want that one. That one doesn't fit Barbados. So the reasons, alternative approaches to targeting, Joe, right? So it says here, experience has shown that cost-effective targeting of social safety net transfers can be achieved through a combination of measures: geographical testing, self-selection targeting, right? So it says here, right? So it says here, some programs have explicit designs, features to try to induce certain individuals to apply and others not to, promoting differential take-up across the population. So, for example, public worker programs may pay low wages for short periods to discourage those with better employment prospects from participating. Programs in lower income households self-select into the program, while higher income households self-select out of the program. So it can this can substantially reduce the admin costs of targeting and the leakage of benefits to higher income groups, right? So here is where you could have adopted a different approach, so as opposed to saying, well, everybody, regardless of income status, you get the cash grant. Well, you could have targeted individuals working for below a certain amount, right? And given the cash grant for it to be more effective, because persons working for a higher level of income more than likely will not access the cash grant. But if you send it
That's
directly
right.
to the bank accounts, they more likely will spend it, though,
Obviously,
right? Right. So that is another great area there that the government has to, clarify as to why they was make it that universal, right?
for universal income.
Because it is a dry run for a universal income, determining, how
But
every person on any population, uh, yeah. So Pedro Gem asking you how to be paying national insurance for the last 12 months to get, but that is not that is part of the criteria. However, it was extended to say that persons who don't meet the criteria, that there's a process available for you. So then you would have to go in the lanes and register. Right? You have to go in the lanes and register. They said they would have done a due diligence test to determine, to determine. So we have put that up on the screen in our first when we first came on to the shoujo. So
hmm
let me try to pull it back up again one last time because we coming down the last segment. We got it off at 9:30. Right,
okay.
right. It says here, Pedro, that the government announced says a $300 solidarity payment amid strong corporate tax returns. So we went through this extensively earlier in the show. So I don't want
Right.
to
Okay.
go over. No, I don't want
So
to
you
go
don't have to go
over.
back.
Yeah, but just trying to quote. My screen hasn't changed as yet. Right. It was open to say that persons who are above 18 could benefit, could benefit from the grant. So just quoting back the article that we had earlier. Government announces this $300 solidarity payment, and Minister Strong he said here that all national insurance contributory pensioners, non-contributory pensioners, including those accessing special need grants, persons receiving invalidity benefits, and welfare claims, will all receive the allowance. And he said that recognizing that some individuals may not fall into these categories, Strong announced a process for those who have not worked in the last year, meaning paying the national insurance over the last 12 months. He said that there's a process for those persons to receive the grants, right? So
Hmm.
again, you can go back and you can watch, but I just had to put it back here that you can see what we mean. You can go back and reference that.
Okay. I would go back and have a reference to it since I was a little late getting in. So I have a lot of questions, but I know we don't have enough time for that. So we just another time we will get another part three or two and three to that issue, short segment.
Yeah, you want to make any comments?
Uh, no, I don't want to make any comments on it, but I just want to, because you cover it extensively, and to make a comment on it, I would have to go back and read from the top straight through. But I hope in that sometime we would actually, when we sparingly, we would just have to spend another 20 minutes because there were some questions that was came to me from other individuals. First, we just want to see how we are moving on this system here in Barbados going forward. So we'll just do that in another segment. I will discuss that and do that. We'll create a segment for that where we can discuss that in other details. Because coming out of what you have spoken, I'll just give it to you quickly. There was something we were talking about the vision and leadership. They were looking at, because of what you said, the policies and priorities, youth inclusion, governance and accountability, party growth and strategy, and Barbados global role. So those are things that that people was just up to me to read to look at going forward, which would make us stronger. Maybe it's over back to you, so we can answer some of the chats, questions in the chat for the 5 minutes or so, and then we'll give a closing.
Yeah. Well, tonight we extensively covered this cash grant. I
Correct.
want to encourage persons to go and rewatch how we brought down the cash grant, how we spoke to the origin of the cash grant, where we highlighted that government made $1 billion in corporate taxation. And we were saying that the cash grant could have been more because you have the revenue in place. You have the revenue in place to be able to pay more, right? We brought down the reason or the rationale as to why it would have been administered by the National Insurance Scheme. So it is also the cash grant is also a test run for the digitization of the National Insurance Scheme. So Barbados Revenue Authority already has every taxpayer's TAMIS number, like, a TAMIS number. They already have majority of your bank account information. However, in terms of the transfer of information, it does not occur so freely and easy as we think. Right? So, despite them both being institutions under the Ministry of Finance, there's always conflict in terms of the transfer of information. So, BRA has a complete dossier of information, however, the NAS may not. Right? So, the NAS to be able to garner that information, right? This type of surveillance safety net program, right, set up directly from the national insurance would allow the NAS to have on record all of the TAMIS numbers for persons, the bank accounts for persons, and it would allow them to test out paying direct cash payments without the use of a check. Right? So they would directly dispersing cash straight to your bank account. Right? For those persons now who don't have a bank account and don't have TAMIS and don't have all of that, you will still receive a check, right? But you'll be in a minority now, right? So they could be able to manage the small amount of persons now who would need a check. But if you are going the check route, the idea is to get you to or encourage you to have the Trident ID, digital ID, and then encourage you to get a bank account, a government incentivized bank account, and pin that account to the ID with the expectation that you will be receiving cash grants in the future on condition on the ID, right? On condition of having the
Well,
ID. So for those persons who check in and don't want to put in the information, the bank account, the timers, you know what, is looking to catch you through the ID and pay you incentives now to take the ID by the cash grant, right? So those persons who, as I said, I've seen it from the perspective of this is the dry run to digitize, right? To digitize now the national insurance, phase out checks, right? Phase out check. Eventually, not immediately, phase out checks, and to have persons receiving payments through the digital ID. Now, it is also a way for government to try to capture self-employed people, right? Self-employed people who don't register their bank account or who don't register TAMIS or who don't register anything, but you still want that $300. It'll be a smart way to catch you if you put down where you know your place of employment. So a government can, right, so a government can, yeah. So government be able to track and trace. Right. I said NAS and BRA. I said something else other than NAS and BRA. Then I said NAS and Revenue Authority, or did I say something else, PA? Joe?
and I yes, I'm bra.
Right. BRA, not BAR, but the Revenue Authority is what you mean.
Well, yeah.
Right. So yeah, so we brought down, Joe, what is the difference in terms of a transfer, this cash transfers,
Mhm.
we touched a bit on the targeted programs versus the universal programs.
Right,
The cash grant, this particular cash grant is not a cash grant that is targeted at poverty alleviation, right? Because if it was targeted at poverty alleviation, it would not be a universal grant. Right? So the
right.
question should be put to the authorities is if this is a dry run or a test run for a universal basic income for every citizen of Barbados, and why not go the targeted approach? Because persons above a certain income level, won't necessarily want it. So yeah, so that's basically the gist of it. So we're not at the end of that session, so we're just gonna take a comment or two, and then we're gonna sign off because we're at 9:30, and we don't want to take these sessions on too long. But I definitely had a good time. Sorry you didn't make it in earlier.
Yes, I would have made because I had a barrage of information as it relates to this this cash grant, which is like which is you touch on universal income, and that was something that was coming from me too, and I had the key differences. There's a lot of stuff we have there, that I researched today, but another time.
Yeah. So that's to read the comments quickly. Thank you guys. You had a
Yeah,
very good comment section tonight. Interesting, interesting. So we're just going to read a few of these, as usual, because we like to engage the audience. So thank you guys for coming on in the midst of the hype and in the midst of the by-election. This information is critical, crucial. So I'm arming you with the facts. And you can go there, ask your respective political parties, your respective leaders, and not be mama guide. Right? It's not be mama guide. So the N.N.P
Mama
is about
guide.
educating the people of Barbados. Yeah, educating the people of Barbados to make the right choice for themselves. So, good night to Fabian Yard. Good night to Romeo Hickson. Good night to Pete Way. Good night to Marcia Miller, Adrian X, Simeon Barrow, Mac Bolan. Saying good night, Kemar. Good night to you. That was you, Joseph Cadogan. Saying good night. Um, Israelites had asked a question earlier, gaining double tax revenues during COVID sounds a bit much. I would like to know who those companies are. Um, so are they? Deborah Law is saying good night. Sean Cole. Good night to you, Sean Cole. Anthony Oliver from NYC. Welcome on to the new National Party live stream, N.N.P
Ready?
night. Before we get too far or we stray, just a quick reminder. Now that we have Joe on here, a quick reminder of the N.N.P Father's Day lunch. So here's it on the screen. So we're having a Father's Day luncheon under the patronage of the N.N.P leader, Kemar, Stuart, myself, for Father's Day at the Prerogative House, Wilkinson Road, Prerogative, St. George. We are starting at 11, full served at 12. Live music and entertainment. Tickets are $60 for adults and $30 for kids. It is going to be a family day, so come out and relax for the entire day. You know, eat, drink, listen to some music, dance, having fun, and we'll be at Prerogative House. So come on out and support the new National Party luncheon. The executive, and I'm sure Joe will have something very nice to say about this luncheon, but the executive will be very pleased to have a social event where we can see you in the celebration of the men, the fathers, the grandfathers, and so on of society. So we want to encourage you to bring your dad or your granddad, even an uncle or stepdad, to the N.N.P luncheon happening on Father's Day, June 15th at the Prerogative House, Prerogative St. George.
Well, I would like to say to everyone, I thank you all for listening in. And as Kemar says, I would like you all to come out and have a great time at our Father's Day lunch that's coming up. Get your tickets early so you make sure you don't miss the best of it. As I say, start at 11, food served at 12. I'd like everyone to tune in again, share, like, and share our platform. And the N.N.P is here for you, the people. I want to say thanks to everyone that's in listening tonight again, and St. John, and all the whole of Barbados. And I wish you all the best. Take care and have a wonderful time.
Yeah, yeah. So let us just wrap up these comments here, Joe. I want to say
Hmm.
goodnight to Dennis Tate. I want to say goodnight to Dennis Tate and to Margaret. I want to say goodnight to Oswald and everybody over there in Sergeant Street, St. John. Good night to you guys. I definitely love you and appreciate you. Pedro Gemma, good night to you. Thanks for tuning in. Mr. Angel, very much love having you on tonight. Good night, and thank you. Fabian again. Thank you guys for your feedback. Thank you guys for your feedback. Pete Ray, thank you very much, Pete Ray. We enjoyed having your interaction on here. Thank you for your questions. We hope we answered your questions in a very fitting way. The N.N.P is open to candidates, by the way. So if persons who are interested in running should definitely send in your interest. Send in your interest at New National Party Barbados at gmail.com. Contact me, message on WhatsApp. The party's telephone number is 846-9912. Message on WhatsApp if you're interested in being added to the N.N.P group to follow up on N.N.P updates. Um, and you can keep track and follow, but we are open for candidates. Slate is open for candidates. Slate is open for persons who are interested in being spokespersons as well. The slate is open for persons who want to work within the inner walls of the party as well. So we are open for our personnel. So I'm encouraging you, if you have that interest, put your hand up and the new National Party will very much welcome and support you, in your journeys moving forward to make Barbados a better place. So we have Gelbiz on, so good night to you, Gelbiz. Good night to Benjamin Cattle. Good night, Benjamin. Good night to Colin Roach, Paralegal Services Barbados. Good night, Colin Roach, who's saying that all of our direct revenue generating assets are sold at least. That means we make no money. And I agree with this point here by Colin Roach. That means we make no money. So you couldn't get that $1,000 except from the private sector paid back in taxes. Okay. So very good point. He said first issue, you should be generate or regaining control of direct revenue generating assets without financing from the people and not private enterprise. All said would value. Hey, I can't understand the NAL terminology. Right. So I think that is it in terms of acknowledgement. Yeah, Lumumba. Connect to Lumumba. Big shout outs to Lumumba and Bongolates. Hey, you said NIL. I'm not sure what is NIL, Colin. So that's why he stopped at making a complete statement. So shout outs to Lumumba. Shout outs to Bongolates. Shout outs to Fred Carbane. Shout outs to Lady Max on and Sugar D over at Beijing Vibes 246 Radio. Shout out to all the uh getting a little caught up thinking this is alternate views. But shout outs to all of our supporters over and abroad for the new national party, all of our supporters over in Canada and other places. Um, we are glad to have you viewing us tonight. So we hope that you learned quite a bit and we hope that you became a lifelong learner tonight, Joe, because
Correct, correct, correct.
although we had a heavy topic, we broke it down right down
Right down.
for
I
the
can see
average
that.
man to grasp. So I want you guys to share this perspective with others out there. I want to share this information, and I would very much love if the media, I would very much love if the media of Barbados, if the media of Barbados could take some of the content, the actual analysis and content from the show, and publish it, that John public will have a fair understanding of exactly what these cash grants and these social safety nets are all about. So it is 9:43 p.m. and this brings us to the end of the N.N.P night. So any parting comments from you, Mr. Cadogan, chairman of the N.N.P?
Well, my parting comments basically would be, I thank everyone for being here, tuning in. And as always, as you know, I'm the kind of person here. I would like to have before we close off, a little closing prayer, as you know, because we have a heavy task going ahead of us going forward, and we plan to make it for the people honestly and openly and right across. So if you know, before we close, I would just like to make a closing prayer. As soon as you ready, I can go ahead.
Yeah. But before you
Okay.
say your prayer, I just want to acknowledge that one of our comrades, Omar Smith, right? Omar Smith, he would have recently lost his mother, so we want to say our condolences, express our condolences to Omar, and to
All
wish
right.
Omar the best of strength, moving forward, given his challenging experience at this time. And also respects to Omar Smith.
Send my condolences to Omar also.
So let us pray.
Okay. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together today and for guiding our thoughts, discussion, and action. As we depart from this place, may your vision remain with us. Help us to carry forward what we have learned and to act with integrity, compassion, and a purpose in all we do. Grant us safe passage to our destination, peace in our hearts, and renew strength to serve others and walk in your light. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. 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 So thank you for that, Joseph. Yeah, let's say good night to Ultra Mixer Rentals. So good night to Ultra Mixer Rentals. Don't forget if you want to rent your mixers, give Ultram a call. And yeah, that is 822-3288. If you're in the construction or anything in the night, give Mr. Ultram a call. Another reminder again of our luncheon, the new National Party luncheon. Um, Colin asked about his artist performance, so let us have a conversation, Colin, about any of your artists on our entertainment package. But we love to see you at the luncheon. We love to see you at the luncheon. This is a social event. It isn't party colored. We are accepting people from all walks of Barbados to come on and celebrate. Fathers Day at Prerogative House, at Prerogative St. George. So I will see you there. So let us chat, Colin, off the record that we very much love to see you and majority of the persons on here. If you can, send out an invitation. The new National Party is hosting a Father's Day luncheon on June the 15th. Tickets for adults are $60, children are $30. And we look forward to seeing you there, definitely. So, my people,
Good night.
have a great night. I will see you Thursday for alternate views. Don't forget, Thursday, tune into alternate views on this same program. And I will see you on Thursday, 7 o'clock on alternate views. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to share. The new National Party is here.